Hello, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Doing well?
Sorry, I'm moving around. I've been sitting all morning and I'm trying to stand a little more.
Yeah. No, I definitely understand. I've got a standing desk, so sometimes I'll stand, sit, have to change it up.
So here's my problem. I have a standing desk and I just don't use it enough.
No?
No, I need to like get in that habit.
Yeah, I still find like most of the time I do just sit, but I mean that it'll be that off day or two like where I'll use it to stand for a couple hours and like it does help.
Yeah. You know what I need is those like cushiony things you stand on. I feel like
Yeah,
maybe
like the pads.
maybe I'm just making excuses now.
No, I've standing on those. Those do help.
Dude, they're so comfortable.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, we could jump into it. So where you're in Arizona right now?
Yep.
Cool. Well, let's do this. You've talked to Julie so far or McKenna?
McKenna.
Okay. You want to do this? I'll catch me up on kind of what you think Kinetic does, what they told you about Kinetic, what we're trying to do as a company, and then what kind of this role is, and then I'll fill in any gaps for you, and then we
Okay.
could just we could go from there.
Okay, definitely, yeah. I mean, I'll start as just like with my understanding of Kinetic and the product. It's to decrease like workplace injuries in terms of like just lifting, moving, like making sure things are more ergonomic so that those warehouse workers, like light industrial workers, aren't getting injured. And I mean, I definitely just in like my past experience, like selling into warehouses and staffing for light industrial, I definitely see that there's a need for it. In terms of just kind of what me and McKenna talked about and like this role and where the company is going, pretty much said it would be like mid-market and enterprise focused for a lot of like these bigger accounts. And you guys are pretty much just looking to grow into a couple new categories and kind of continue on the growth path that you've been on.
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it. That's it. The only thing I would share that you probably haven't heard at Kinetic is the reason we sell into these really, really big companies like the Coca-Colas, the Pepsis, like the big guys, is because they're self-insured, so they pay for an injury. When an injury happens, that's like money out of their pocket. Yeah, so they're very incentivized to like lower those injuries. There's another business unit at Kinetic that goes after the SMB and the mid-market companies, kind of the smaller guys, and they do that by selling workers' comp. So we went out and partnered with Nationwide. I'm sure you're familiar with Nationwide. They do home, auto, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That we partnered with them, so we sell workers' comp to the small companies, and we basically say we'll give you a cheaper monthly rate, we'll give you a dividend at the end of the year. But the catch is you have to use our safety technology. It's the same technology we sell on our side. It's the same thing. So just more as an FYI, that's the other side of the Kinetic's business that's also growing really, really quickly.
Okay.
And then just to give you the background on me, so I've been here about 3.5 years, very much on the sales side for the direct enterprise business. So my role is very much on the working super close with the BDRs and SDRs to book the meetings, run the demos. We have like a year-long sales cycle.
Okay.
So it's a lot of demos. It's a lot of on-site visits. It's a lot of meetings with like all the stakeholders till eventually they usually start a pilot and then sign a contract. And then I hand it off to the customer success team.
Okay.
So that's my background. So why don't we do this? Why don't you, let me know what your what you're doing now and all like the kind of metrics involved. I know on your resume it says 100 daily outbound touches, but yeah, give me the abbreviated version of kind of what you're actually selling and all the day-to-day responsibilities.
Definitely. So Instawork, it's pretty much a modern staffing solution, all app-based. They have about 6 million professionals that are signed up to, pick up shifts within their application. And I'm selling into like mid-market and enterprise level size companies. For example, like I mentioned, it could be warehousing. Like I set a few demos up recently with Swire Coca-Cola at some of their locations. It could be hotels, it could be stadium, and we can staff anything from like general laborers, warehouse associates. It could be for event setup, takedown, servers. We even work with a lot of like the big hotels, the Hiltons, the Marriotts for like front of house, back of house, chefs, line cooks, things of that nature.
Oh, so it's full-time, you're staffing full-time and part-time positions or like temporary stuff?
Yeah, so usually it's like temporary, and then we have a model where you can do like temp or part-time to full-time, but within 24 hours we can staff at a 92% fill rate. And depending on the size of the company, that's going to be the biggest thing affecting that sales cycle. But ideally, like if it's just a mom and pop like caterer, we can have them signed up, onboarded on the app, and within like same day, 24 hours, we could have people showing up. Obviously, with the larger accounts, there's a lot more different C-level people you have to go through and approvals and just things between the vetting and the background checks that slows the sales cycle down. In terms of numbers and metrics, I've been with Instawork for about half a year. I was about 220% to quota during the ramp-up period. And then this month, I'm at just about 7 qualified demo completes I've got 2 more running. And then last month, I was at 5 qualified demo completes. So in terms of like metrics outside of those 100 outbound touches, most of them are going to be, I'll say half and half. So about 50 like outbound cold calls, and then 50 personalized strategic emails to these C-level personas. And I'll usually spend maybe 5 minutes, check out their LinkedIn, see what info I can kind of grab, and just make sure I have a really personalized subject line. And the first couple sentences are super personal too, just to increase the engagement and the odds that they open it. And then it's a nice talk track to use like when I'm actually calling. And outside of those metrics, I would just say I'll sprinkle in like 20 to 40 LinkedIn touches on a weekly basis.
Do you use outbound daily touches to cover both email and dials?
Yeah.
So how many per day, if you break it down as like 50-50, how many like dials are you making per day?
Yeah, about 50 to 60 dials per day.
And then another 50.
Yeah, like 40 to 50 emails. Yeah. Usually we'll have like an email. We start the cadence with the email, and then that way we use that as a talk track once we do get them on the phone. And it'll be something along the lines of like, hey, I saw you've been with X company for X amount of years. Like, that's such a testament to your loyalty. Are you finding it as simple finding loyalty within the warehouse or within general labor? And then lead with social proof, like we're actually working with Stitch Fix, T-Force Logistics, and Axel Hire down the street. They were dealing with some turnover. Just wanted to see how are you looking at staffing as we approach the busy season this summer.
That's pretty good. How many people actually pick up? You're making $50 a day. Are you calling cell phones?
Yeah, I prefer cell phones. I mean, I'll call in to like some office lines, but I prefer cell phones. I would say in terms of like on an average, I'll usually do between 10 and 15 like DM contacts, so like decision makers that I'll reach on a weekly basis. So I mean, yeah, give or take like 2 to 3 like actual decision makers a day, and I'll say maybe 5 to 7 like people who actually like pick up and conversate. My talk time's usually like 30 to like 45 minutes a day, just depending on like how those conversations go, if I'm talking more with gatekeepers, and if I'm doing more of like just kind of detective or like prospecting work of like trying to map out an account and like who's the general manager here, okay, who is their district manager, what units or locations do they oversee. So kind of varies, but
How do you segment out who you're going to call? Do you do by industry size? How do you like, you have this, you could call anybody. How do you like prioritize?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because so in January we got like super regions. So literally I've got like between outside of California, like everything on the West Coast from Seattle to Arizona to Colorado. So typically what I've found to be the best way is using whatever recent deals my account executives closed. So for an example, one of my account executives closed like a smaller warehouse company called Topo Designs. And from there, I actually called probably in like the 5 to 10 mile radius, a lot of the warehouses like in that area. And then I just used that as social proof, like, hey, we actually working with Topo Designs down the street, and then as well, like using Zoom Info to segment and search up by companies that have like similar revenue size, similar headcount size to other deals that I've seen like in our invoicing channel or just ones that we know kind of have closed in the past.
How do you think about industry? You said warehouse, like Swire Coca-Cola is one we call on, but it seems like everybody. It seems like a lot of companies could use this for like temporary staffs, like seasonal work. How do you think about like which industries?
Yeah, I mean, so I usually go to where like there's most potential of volume in like multiple locations. So I'm usually calling in on like the light industrial, warehousing companies, like 3PL, third party logistic companies. Those are the ones I prefer. I usually don't call as much of like the hospitality or hotels. But yeah, just focusing on like Hibbert. They're another one that we're in works like closing that I called on. They're like a on demand kind of like shipping and like logistical type of company. So they'll take on different projects, whether they're doing like kitting or like pick pack, those type of companies within like either consumable goods, or yeah, just anything like that's overall warehousing, but like you don't need a lot of training in terms of like literally someone can come spend 90 minutes and then that same day like they can just be doing some simple pick pack, moving boxes, things of that nature are usually like the type of companies, type of industries. So any bottling companies, beverage companies, I think Khalil Bottling was another one I called on for like vertical wise.
Who's the usual decision maker? You said you get 2 or 3 people to pick up, or the decision maker, and the other kind of 5 to 7 gatekeepers, whatever. Who's the DM, and like how do you know that?
Yeah, so usually it's gonna be like a COO, like a chief operating officer, depending.
But you're not getting like a chief operating officer at Swire Coca-Cola, like no way.
So not at Swire. At Swire, I've got like operations managers, and then what we'll do is like kind of multi-thread and bubble it up. So I usually start with like warehouse manager, and when I'm talking with the warehouse manager, I dive into like, hey, what does it actually look like on the floor? Are you dealing with no shows? Are people calling out? How does that affect the operations? And then I take that pain up to like a operations officer who oversees like the entire unit, and then from there, then I kind of try and go up the chain of like director of human resources, and then like a chief operating officer, someone who's or like VP of operations, depending on the company size.
And then for the smaller guys, that's when you're getting like you're going straight to like the top guys. Yeah. Got it. But at your current role, are you sitting in on the demos and also doing closing? Because you were talking about some revenue numbers. Do you sit in on that, or do you hand that off to the AEs that you mentioned?
I hand that off to the AEs. I usually will sit in on the demo and like just do a handoff to start it off. And I have found like literally just being a fly on the wall and seeing what pain, how the demos are run usually can help like just in sourcing new accounts or finding similar ways to handle objections when you're on like the open call or the discovery call. But yeah, it's definitely like it's the account executives. We've got some people who have been doing it for years who they're usually the ones closing it. I'm just setting it up.
Yeah. How do you kind of structure your day?
So in terms of structuring, I like break it out in different time blocks. I start the day off by like kind of like enriching and like vetting through a lot of like the contacts that I'm going to be calling. From there, the next time block is like just going through sending out those bulk emails, finding different facts, and then from there is going to be like my first call block, call. Usually by then it's kind of around like lunchtime. After that, I'll do another call block, and then after those 2 call blocks, like it's just kind of admin work, and then I'll go into like sourcing net new opportunities, pipeline management.
What tools do you use to do all that?
So I'm using ZoomInfo, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, Salesforce for CRM, and then we're using SalesLoft for outreach, Gong, Chili Piper as well, just for like scheduling demos or listening to the calls.
How do you like, that's a grind. It's not the easiest job. It's
No.
it's a grind to make that many calls. How do you kind of like do it day after day, week after week, month after month? What's kind of like your mindset?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a numbers game. And then I think definitely like with my targeting, the way that I've built up a little bit of a pipeline to where I'm focusing on the bigger accounts and the multi-location ones. So because the quota was like this month 9 qualified demo completes, my main focus was going to be on accounts that at least I knew could bring like 2 to 3 demos because I've got multiple locations. So really just looking at it like when I first started, I was just calling like the smaller like mom and pop shops and like one-off companies, and I was definitely spinning my wheels a lot because it's like you spend all that energy, finally get one person on the phone, and then if the volume's not there, it doesn't qualify. So just focusing on the bigger accounts has kind of given me a little extra time like towards the end of the month where I can kind of lean back a little bit and then start preparing like, all right, what are the bigger accounts that I can target going into next month, instead of like just spinning my wheels with all these little ones.
Yeah. So is your success in your comp is really just based on meetings booked or like meetings attended?
Yeah, it's like qualified meetings booked.
Got it. So why has any of your other previous experiences, does that kind of fit into this to this role?
In terms of like industry.
No, I was more looking at like Design Technology when it says an AE, like it seems like you're running this full sales cycle there.
Yeah, I mean, most of my roles have always been full sales cycle. Like when I first broke into sales, I was a real estate agent, and my first year I did about $2 million in volume. That was like full cycle from sourcing the lead, setting the listing appointment, closing them, and then like doing all the transactional duties throughout the deal. And I would say at the side, it kind of varied. It was a startup, so I was wearing a lot of different hats sometimes, like as an SDR. Some weeks we didn't have to do any dials and we were just sourcing like 200 plus leads. Other weeks we were sourcing leads and preparing for a conference like Affiliate Summit East. And then definitely towards like once I was promoted to an account executive and like once I was ending that SDR role, I was then like running a lot of my demos and closing a lot of my deals too. But to start, it wasn't full cycle.
So how are you thinking about, call this a lateral move, going back on the phones where it's not full sales cycle? Like, is that a step back in your mind? Like how are you justifying that?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a step back. One, because enterprise, I'll be focusing on bigger accounts, and that's kind of what I've seen now in like my role at InStore, just because I'm not the one closing the deals either. I'm setting them up, but having to focus on bigger accounts and then being at a company where there's a lot more growth opportunity, I would kind of take that step back in a sense.
What's the longer term goal? Like you could only be, not you, just in general, I think the average tenure of a BDR or an SDR is like 12, 18 months. People start really trying to get out of it. What's the long term play?
Yeah. Long term, definitely looking to become an account executive, like on that like enterprise level, and start developing some of those bigger relationships for sure.
What do you think you're doing that worked? Like it's clear, it seems like it's working. Or actually, to take a step back, how big's the team at the current role?
So out in the Phoenix office, we've got a team of probably like 10 or 12, like 5 SDRs, and then about like 7 or 8 account executives. So right now we're actually like per SDR, maybe we're closer to 4 SDRs then. Per SDR, we have like 2 account executives that we're setting meetings for. So like we're like round robin, like going back and forth.
You said Phoenix office, is it remote or are you going into an office?
Yeah, it's hybrid. So that's really the main reason I'm looking to make a transition. I just moved out to Mesa, like Arizona, which is maybe 35 minutes or so from like downtown Phoenix where the office is, but like with traffic, it can get up to like an hour there, hour back. So that's the biggest reason that I'm looking to just go to something that's like fully remote. But yeah, I mean, that's just our Phoenix team. Like we've got teams in San Francisco, Chicago, New York, and Nashville as well.
Are you guys venture funded?
Yeah, so I believe we just went through like Series D in the last, I'd say 6 months or so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What about Decide Technologies? You said that was a startup too. Were they venture backed?
Yeah, I think they were just Series A. So like they were a little bit on the smaller side, and then like around 2022, their financials just wasn't looking good for them, and that's when like the tech space as a whole took kind of a downturn. So they let go probably a third of the company back in 2022 after like their first round the year before.
Man, interesting. Yeah, I just googled it. So InstaWork, right? You guys raised $60 million last year.
Yeah.
Do you have equity?
I don't. I do have like some stock options, but I mean, they haven't IPO'd yet, so I've got a little bit of equity, but nothing crazy.
Yeah. It's probably on a vesting schedule anyway. You've been there. It probably has. Does it have a 1 year cliff?
I think it's like 1.5 to vest.
Just for the cliff, just for it to kick in?
Yeah, I believe so. It's a little bit on the longer side.
Oh yeah, it's usually 1 year. Interesting. Yeah, so I guess that's not holding. That's not keeping you there. What are you kind of looking for in your next role? What are the kind of the criteria you have?
So I would say just a lot of opportunity for growth. One where whether it's like new markets, new verticals, or just new accounts to reach. So definitely growth. I would say supportive, but also like a competitive sales team where if someone else is seeing success, it's going to push me, but I also want to know like, hey, what's really working for you? Like what are the type of accounts maybe you're targeting? What are you using for your outbound templates or for your talk track? So I would say those would be the biggest things, like just growth opportunity, competitive, and supportive.
Got it. And then what caught your eye about Kinetic specifically? How'd you actually come across Kinetic? What site was it on?
I think I was just looking on LinkedIn, and the biggest thing that caught my eye was kind of how you were focusing on like reducing injury for a lot of the light industrial workers, and like with InstaWork, one thing that like all the employees, we had to like work a shift. So literally it was like a warehouse shift where we were pretty much just sorting. It was like 1,000 like mini cards, and literally you're just like counting them out like in like sets of 50, like moving stuff around. And probably a few years ago I had a chance to like work at Amazon warehouse too, and like just from seeing those shifts and like how prevalent injury can be and like how your body feels like after one of those, your guys' product I think is definitely needed like across the board in a lot of these roles.
They InstaWork made you do that as training, like, hey, these are the positions where staffing go out and do it for us, so you know what it's like on boots on the
like
ground.
everyone at the company, like once a year you have to work at least one shift.
That's actually a pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good way to make people realize what they're selling. I actually kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of those jobs are pretty tough.
Yeah.
All those jobs are pretty tough. Those aren't. The doing that will give you some perspective of working from home, sitting in your place behind a computer to doing that. It puts it in perspective. So what do you think you're doing that's working that maybe the other SDRs aren't doing?
I would just say like sourcing, like focusing on the bigger accounts and reverse engineering from the accounts that we've closed and are posting lots of shifts that are doing well. So that's how I stumbled on a couple of multi-locations like the Hibbert, the Royal Cup Coffee, the Swire Coca-Cola, NRI Distribution. So like a lot of the other SDRs, because we offer so many positions, like we have brand ambassadors, we have housekeepers, we've got, like I mentioned, front of house, back of house. So like some SDRs are just focusing on restaurants, or some of them are focused on like the smaller hotels, or doing like catering, event setup and takedown for weddings and parties and things of that nature, where my focus was just like, let me focus on the companies that are doing a lot of revenue, that need a lot of people, and then kind of work down from there instead of spinning my wheels on the smaller accounts.
How do you guys as a company, what's your payment model? Are they paying per person hired or per set of time? Because temporary, you guys would make less money, I'm guessing, than full time. Like, how do you guys make money?
So they make money off of a markup between pretty much the company, like the partner. They'll set the bill rate, and then anywhere between, I'll say, like a 30 and 40% markup is how much InstaWork takes. But they provide like the background check, they provide insurance, liability, vetting. They even have like geolocation, so like you can actually see when one of these professionals are showing up. They provide like shift captains, so they just charge a markup between, if the hourly rate is 18 an hour, then they're going to be charging like a 23 in total or something like that.
And that's in perpetuity?
Yeah.
So if the guy stays there a year, you're making $4 an hour for that whole time.
Yeah.
And then I guess this is more your AEs, but are they, I wonder if they're compensated on, is it ongoing? Because your company
No,
would
so
make
the AEs, they're compensated on F30 shifts posted.
What is that?
Like first 30 days. So
F30 first 30 days.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
Yeah, first 30 days for like shifts posted.
But you guys as a company make more money than if you're not doing the seasonal stuff, because then you're getting that $4 an hour only for the first, if that's a 3-month position or a 1 weekend position. You guys are making way more money when you could staff full time. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, I mean, if there's like just a recurring need. So like some of our biggest partners are going to be like a lot of these like stadiums, some of these venues, and then we've got a bunch of MSAs with a lot of hotels. So we have a feature where you can build out a roster. So for a lot of these hotels, when they do have like those kind of fluctuations, they'll just already have a roster of people that they can call in. Like as soon as they post a shift, they get notified. So it's kind of like a seasonality basis, but there's a consistent need.
Got it. I got you. So it's probably more of that than we're basically hiring a full-time guy.
Yeah, because you can hire full-time. I think it's after like 300 hours though is when that placement fee like disappears. So if you hire one of their employees full-time, they do charge, I think, a few $1,000s.
Yep. That's a pretty interesting business model. So So what's your pitch? Like, you get a guy on the phone, say you get a cold call and the guy's giving you a little bit of time. What's your, I'm not meaning to put you on the spot,
No.
but I'm just curious, like what's kind of your quick pitch?
Yeah, I mean, quick pitch. So first I'll lead off like with that social proof, like whatever warehouse down the street, they were struggling with turnover, people were calling off, and it messed up their operations and stock times. Wanted to see how you're looking at staffing. They may say, they're working with this agency, or if they've got 3 different partners, then I'll just ask like, well, shoot, like, why are you using 3? What does that process look like if you need someone tomorrow and you go to HR? Like, how long before they actually show up? And then I'll pitch them on like, well, with InstaWork, we have 6 million professionals, pre-vetted, background check, who can show up within 24 hours at a 92% fill rate. I know you mentioned you're dealing with some turnover, some people calling out, and it's just not letting you give the best customer service, and it's also costing you 5+ hours to meet with your HR team, and then it takes them 10 days before you get someone. You might train them, and if they don't like it, they're not showing up again. Would it make sense we just spend 15 minutes tomorrow at 10 a.m. or 2 p.m.? I'll show you how many people we have in the zip code and explain how we saved Stitch Fix 5 hours out the week in terms of like actually staffing people.
Are you getting all that in before the meeting ask? Like, these guys are giving you that much time?
Yeah, so I mean, it's not all in like one question. Usually I'll try and get in at least a couple.
Let's do it. Let's do this. Let's do a quick role play. So if I'm the ops manager and I'm like, and you cold call, you probably sent me a sequence in an email. I might recognize your name if I'm like, hey, hello, who's this? What's kind of like your opening?
Yeah. So opening, I would just be like, hey, Trent, this is Sharif here, calling from InstaWork. I was actually speaking with Beth over at Stitch Fix. Did you have maybe 30 seconds? I can kind of explain why I'm calling.
Yeah, I got a minute. Go for it. What's this about?
Sweet. So me and Beth pretty much were talking about turnover in terms of warehouse associate roles. She was dealing with a lot of people calling out sick, not showing up, or she was just training people and they were ghosting her. I saw you guys had some open warehouse associate roles. just wanted to see, how are you looking at staffing as we approach this busy season in spring and summer?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a problem. We have 90% turnover, and we know summer's our busy season and it's coming up. And yeah, we know we have slots to fill.
Huh. Interesting. So, I mean, last summer with that 92% turnover, like, how did that impact just the operations overall?
We just had to pay a lot of overtime. We had to pull people in off different shifts, and we have a different staffing partner that we work with that tries to fill them as needed as well. But it's a pain. We know it's the 100 days of summer, and this business is hard.
You understood completely. Yeah, and I mean, actually, with Stitch Fix down the street, before we started working together, they were dealing with something similar of a lot of like overtime payments, but they were also burning out their workers. You know, the people who are actually showing up, and it just wasn't good in terms of their operations and stocking times. Not sure, you know, how familiar you are with InstaWork, but we've been able to provide them quality people, reliable people. We take care of all the vetting, background checks, and within 24 hours, honestly, we've been able to serve them at like a 92% fill rate. I mean, typically what we do with other operation managers like yourself is we just jump on a quick 20-minute call. I show you know how many people we have in your zip code, what we've been able to do for some of the warehouses in the area, and then from there, you know, we can decide if it makes sense to continue the convo. If you had some time, I mean, I'm looking at my calendar now, I've got 10 a.m. or 2 p.m. What would work better?
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
You've done this with that. That's really good.
I've done it a lot.
Yeah, no, that was pretty polished. I just got off another interview, and the guy was not that polished. So good job, especially doing it on the fly. I want to save the last like 10, 15 minutes. What time do we got this till 10? Look, I think you've answered all my questions. I think you're a pretty good fit. I'm gonna give the thumbs up to move you on to the next stage. We're trying to do this pretty quickly.
Okay.
We have a BDR in the role now who's staying with us until the end of May. So we're trying to move quick. So I'm gonna give the thumbs up to Julie and McKenna to schedule the next step.
Okay.
But in the meantime, the last like 12 minutes, what can I answer for you?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of just like numbers and metrics, KPIs for this role, how does that look?
So it's kind of two things. The activity metrics, it's probably going to be about 75-ish calls a day.
Okay.
We're calling cell phones. We're using Zoom Info. We don't have a great connect rate. It's probably like less than 10% connect rate. So even at that, you know, only half those are decision makers. So
Yeah.
Let's just say you get 8 people on a conversation a day. 4 of them, kind of like you said, gatekeepers, not the right person. You're kind of muddling around. Maybe you get 3 or 4 decision makers. So that'd be the activity metric, and then we're shooting for 8 meetings per month.
Okay. 8 meetings per month, and then I would assume like the success is measured by like, is it just meeting set, or is it like qualified meeting set, or maybe like demos to proposal?
At this stage, we're just looking for top of funnel. It's really just meetings set. Well, I guess meetings attended. If all 8 no show, that's no good. So yeah, we'll call it like meetings complete.
Okay.
But then we're not, for this role, we're not worried about like how many SQL and how many move on. We have such a long sales cycle that's a different problem, not this problem. So it's just meetings complete.
Okay, that makes sense. And then like in terms of just like tech stack that you guys are using, I know you mentioned like Zoom Info, pulling mobile numbers, like any other softwares or things like that your team's using?
We use HubSpot for sequencing. Have you used HubSpot at all?
Yeah, I have with real estate.
It's pretty intuitive. I mean, we use Salesforce. We use, let me rephrase that. We use HubSpot only for the outreach and the sequencing. Okay. We use Salesforce as a company, kind of like the operational backbone of the company. LinkedIn Sales Nav.
Nice.
We have some AI tools we're playing with that really personalize the emails. I don't know if they're great. I don't know if we're going to keep using those, but there is some pretty interesting like AI tools that could kind of juice the results a little bit.
Okay.
But to be honest, we get people warmed up and they recognize us from the emails. We don't get a ton of meetings booked from email. It's more, hey, this is Trent from Kinetic. Does that sound familiar? Did you see my email? And they go, yeah, I remember this. And then you're kind of jumping into it. So it's very much call heavy, and that's like the success or failure of this role would rely. Number one, someone's got to be organized, because this is a very enterprise sale. So you're chasing people sometimes for months, just back and forth, just to get a meeting. So you got to be organized, but then you got to be like comfortable just just making the number of calls week after week, day after day. Like you
Yeah.
said, it's a numbers game, so you just need to have that kind of like mentality.
That makes sense. In terms of like trade shows or conferences or like just like in person, like traveling, is there anything along those lines that you've seen?
Yeah, we go to conferences. We kind of slowed down on them in 2023. We went to probably like, I don't know, 6 or 8 last in 2022. We'll probably go to a handful more this year. That's we don't see a great return. Sometimes they're so big you almost get like lost in the noise of them. But yeah, we go to them. Is travel an issue for you? Or?
No, not an issue at all. I know in my past roles, like I've seen some success from a couple different conferences. Like at least when I was at Decide, definitely I've seen. Sometimes you might just stumble in the right person in the elevator, but you can get lost.
Yeah, it's hit or miss. But yeah, this SDR, if you want to come to them, absolutely. You can man the booth and yeah, there's probably a handful we could go to.
Okay, sweet. Just in terms of like verticals that you're seeing the most success with, and then I would say just verticals that you're probably going to be focused on maybe more in the coming year, what would that look like?
So we very much segment it by size. The small and mid market, that's all the nationwide stuff. So the number one thing is these guys have to be huge. Like we have our average deal size are about 150 grand. So number one, they have to be just massive. And the industries, you can imagine the injuries they don't come from like white collar companies. No. Nobody sitting in an office need this. So we're always going after distribution and manufacturing. Those are the two big ones. Like Swire Coca-Cola would be like our white whale. We're working with Swire's biggest competitor on the east side. Swire mostly does the western of the U.S. for their distribution. But it's like the Swires of the world would be the big ones.
Okay, that makes sense.
And we're usually calling not operations managers. We're usually going back to like this is an enterprise role. We're really trying to get VPs and directors of ops and safety. And it's hard to do at these big companies. But like they just have the budget. Like you could use kind of like you said, if you talk to a manager and you get a safety manager, you could get some pain points and like use that on your next call.
Yeah, take that up.
We're really trying to move up the chain.
Okay, that makes sense. And then I mean, probably like one of my last questions. Just I know you said you've been here like 3.5 years or so. Based on just everything you've learned, like, is there anything, if you had to start over today, like maybe you do differently, or just like advice that you would give to someone starting?
That's a good question. The big miss we've had since we started is we thought we could implement our product with just a little bit of training and ship the device. We really had to rebuild our customer success team to really be very, very high level. Like we brought in a lot of former consultants, but those guys they're used to working 60, 70 hours a week. They're traveling 4 days a week. Like those guys are sharp. We really had to bring a lot of them in and a new leader to lead that team who was a former consultant to figure out how to implement and make our customers successful. The good news is we got that figured out. The bad news is it took us a while. On the sales side, I think we have a playbook that works. I think what we need and probably what we haven't nailed down perfectly is like we need someone to come in here like this is kind of like the big leagues. Like our CEO is we have to meet our CEO in about an hour to tell him like how was the last month of this. Like we need somebody to like take this playbook that's okay and it works, that just wants to own it and really say like here's how to make this better and here's how to make this like really just be like a fine-tuned machine.
Okay.
And that's probably the one learning we missed over the last few years is we've gotten it close, and now we've really narrowed it down to like, okay, we know the ICP, we know the decision makers, we know where we're a good fit and where we're not. Like let's really get this thing going and see if we can build a big valuable business.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, in terms of questions, I feel like that's really the main ones I had. I know you kind of touched on like next steps, but like I definitely enjoyed the convo and I'd love to move forward. I think there's a pretty good fit just with the type of personas I've been prospecting and the type of industries I've been targeting. So, I mean, I'd love to learn a little bit more about like the next steps and the rest of the process.
Yeah, the next steps will be It's a skills presentation, which basically means show us like 5 or 10 slides on something you're passionate about. We just want to see like, hey, can this person interact with like a VP at a Fortune 500 company? Could you present yourself well? Could you ask good questions? Could you just be, have that executive presence? And then the next piece is just like, how would you make a cold call? Could you take our feedback on how we would tweak it and kind of interpret that feedback and tweak your cold call? So that's kind of 2 20-minute sections, and then another 20 minutes of just like conversation, making sure we're getting all our questions answered, and you get a chance to ask any questions on your side.
Okay. That sounds good.
What about your time? Excuse me. What about your timeline? Are you in like late stages with anyone else?
I have a couple that I'm in like second, third round with in late stages. So like if any offers come through, I'll definitely keep you guys updated. But
yeah, we'd want to make the timing work because we have kind of this one batch that's kind of coming through next week. It's going to be, we're trying to narrow down to like the last 3 here, and I want to stick you in that cohort so we could just kind of move as quick as we can. That works for both of us.
Sweet. Yeah, that works. Like timeline, I'm pretty open to start whenever. So
cool. Are you there? Did you get Rift, or are you there right now?
No, I'm there right now.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I'll leave it to McKenna or Julie to reach out with time frame for that, and we'll just take it from there.
Sweet. Thank you, Trent. It was a pleasure.
All right. Cool. Have a good one.
All right. You too.
Bye.
Bye. Wee.